Good morning. My name is Scott Murchison. I'm a licensed practitioner here at this spiritual community. I want to welcome you here this morning with us and just acknowledge this beautiful altar we have this morning from Kathy Fowler. It is our change altar. She writes with it, autumn represents the change of season. The falling leaves remind us we can let go of ways of being that no longer serve us. Michael Jackson advises us to look at the man in the mirror. Please look to yourself to make the changes you want. The Thai angels are greeting each other in Namaste, showing us that the spirit within does the work. The lotus candles light our way as we realize that the beautiful lotus flower arises from the muck. So no matter how messy our lives appear, beauty can be the end product. Pumpkins represent the harvest we reap from doing our inner work. Frogs and butterflies go through metamorphosis, and so can we. So the traditional angel in the center of the altar provides guidance and protection. So that is our change altar for this morning. So thank you, Kathy. And now it is my honor and pleasure and privilege to introduce our speaker for this morning. I have heard a lot about her. I am in ministerial school now with, it seems like half of our class is from her center. So it is a powerful presence that we have here with us this morning. Reverend Georgia Prescott, she has been a religious science minister since 1998. Around 1998, she came out of ministerial school, and she is with the Center for Spiritual Awareness in West Sacramento, and a powerful presence in our movement. And we just want to welcome her this morning. Reverend Georgia Prescott.
If you don't mind, I think you can probably see me. I'm going to stay down here. If I try and get on that little area, I might fall off. So I'm going to stay down here. And if you can't see me, you just look right up there. And that picture was taken about 20 years ago, but it really is me. Same me. I'm so grateful to be here with my sister in my sister's church. Reverend Carol and I have been doing ministry together for about the last 25 years. And it's been a great privilege to be with her. In fact, she was my first foundations teacher. I don't know if I would be here if it weren't for Reverend Carol saying, just keep going to the next class. I tell my people over in Sacramento, I didn't actually fall out of finishing school into ministry. There was quite a journey before I got there. And part of that journey was not being a spiritual being at all. I won't go into what kind of being it was, but it wasn't spiritual. And so when it got time for me to go to practitioner, I'd finished all the classes, and the next class to take was practitioner class. And I said, God, Carol, I don't think I should be going to practitioner school. She said, look, just go sit in the chair. Don't worry about whether you should be there, shouldn't be there, whether you'll pass or not pass, or be a practitioner or not practitioner. Just sit there and see what happens. And it was her encouragement, her loving encouragement that got me there. Well, today, as always, every Sunday, I like to anchor my talk in a spiritual teaching that comes from our book, The Science of Mind. Now, here's what I do. I paraphrase it because as you heard from Reverend Sarah, that beautiful reading, it takes a minute, doesn't it, to sink in for Ernest Holmes. So the spiritual teaching from him that I'm going to paraphrase today is very close to that reading this morning, and it's this. A changed condition can only happen to a changed individual. A changed condition can only happen to a changed individual. Now, I notice that you call this a celebration service. Some of us call our services celebration services, others of us call our services worship services, but I think we're wrong in both counts. I think we ought to be calling our services a Change Me service. I think we ought to be saying it's Sunday morning and I'm going to go down to the Tamalpais Community Center to the Change Me service. Because I think that's what we're here for, isn't it? Isn't that what we're here to do? It's to be able to change our consciousness so that we can live as God intended us to live, as the psalmist told us that we could live. Be you our gods. Now, of course, we're not all of God. We can't even wrap our head around all of what God is. But God is all of us. And if we could begin to walk in that consciousness that God is all of who we are, we would end jealousy, we would end fear, we would end everything. If we could begin to walk in that. When we can get this teaching deep, that a changed condition can only happen to a changed individual. And you know, when we stop looking at society to give us permission to be who we want to be, you know, Donna and I didn't wait for the state of California to make marriage equal for all people. We decided we wanted to have a loving relationship 8 years ago, and that's what we did. I'm not going to wait for the wage parity to come along gender and racial lines. I'm going to go out and welcome significant income into my life right this minute. I'm not going to wait for the legislature in California to decide English as a second language needs special help. I'm going to go down to the community center and help a kid learn how to read right now. Because change condition can only happen to changed individuals in our lives. And to be able to get into this consciousness, we have to give up living in what we call the land of Ur. The land of Ur. I got this concept from an evangelical preacher that I listen to from time to time called Andy Stanley. And here's what happens. Basically, we all want more Ur. We want to be brighter, richer, skinnier, taller, hipper, happier, don't we? When we think we can have more Ur, then we think we're in heaven in our lives. And then we start dating other people, and all of a sudden we want them to have a little more Ur, don't we? We want them to be a little richer and happier and hipper and their teeth a little whiter and all of that. And then, God forbid, we marry them. And then we're really invested in them having more Ur in their life. And we say, honey, if you had a little more Ur over here, maybe a little less Ur back here, if you'd have that, maybe what would happen is and then you have kids, and oh, it's all over after that, because you want your kids to have more Ur than anybody else's kids. See, but here's the thing. When we come to churches like this, and we begin to understand, we're told over and over and again, we are whole, perfect, and complete, just as we are. When we can begin to get a grasp on what that really means, then we realize there's no more Ur to be had, because we have everything we need right now. Let me give you a story, an example of a kid. You know, kids get this. They get this idea that they are whole, perfect, and complete right here. There's a little boy, he's about 6 years old. His name's Rogelio. And Rogelio's parents wanted to get away for the weekend. And so he was going to go to his grandfather's house. His grandfather was a widower. But he said, you know, bring the boy over. I'll keep him for a weekend. And after he said it, he realized, you know what? I don't actually know what a 6-year-old does and how to care for a 6-year-old. So he went down to the toy store and he bought a plastic ball and a bat. And he said, well, if we get bored, I'll send him out in the backyard. And sure enough, the boy came over, and about 4 hours after he was there, he got a little bored. And so he said, Rogelio, why don't you take your new ball and bat, go outside and play with it in the backyard? So he did. He went out in the backyard and he threw the ball up and he took a swing and he missed. He took a ball and threw it up and took a swing and he missed. Threw the ball up, took a swing and he missed. And he did it about 20 times, missed every time. And his grandfather was watching from the kitchen window and he got worried. And so he went outside and he said, honey, how you doing? And the kid said, oh, Poppy, I'm the greatest pitcher ever lived. That's what living whole, perfect, and complete can do for us. A changed individual can change the conditions. Okay. So we waste so much time trying to change other people in our lives, don't we? People at work, people in our family, our friends. We're always trying to just adjust them a little bit, change them a little bit. I'm always amazed when I teach foundations in Sacramento, and a little while after, maybe about the week 6, people come to me and say, you know what, my family has gotten so much friendlier. My friends are so much more cooperative. And what's happening is they're so deep into the material, they stop trying to judge other people. They stop trying to compete and control with others. And when we send that energy out, that's exactly what we get back. A changed condition can only happen to a changed individual. Now, knowing that we're whole, perfect, and complete does not mean that we don't have some things that we might want to change in our lives, some behaviors we want to let go of, some habits that we want to let go of. But we all need to change something. Only you know what it is. But every person in this room this morning knows there's something in their life about themselves that they need to change. You know, one of the reasons I like New Year's resolutions is it's society's way of directing us to this understanding that there's something that we need to change. Now, for many of us, there are many things that we could change. But I'm talking about that one thing. That one thing that you need to change. So that when I come back here and we switch pulpits a year from now, you'll tell me, I got that now. I got this. It's that one thing that everybody here needs. It's different for everybody. It's different for everybody. It's not new. Most of us have known about this one thing for some time in our life, but we've lost focus. We told ourselves, it's not going to happen for me. I've tried already. I've done treatment. It's not going to happen for me. Maybe it's a habit. Maybe it's a habit you have. And if you could push one button, and you know by pushing that button, that habit would disappear, you would push that button in your life. Maybe it's a goal or a project that you need to have and complete. And you knew that you could complete it if you could push that button. Maybe it's a relationship that either needs to be restored or completed. And you knew that if you could push that button, and there was no warring, there was no emotional shrapnel that was going to fly if you pushed that button, but that you knew that for order for you to move on in your life, you needed to complete this relationship, you would push that button. Maybe it's debt. Maybe you've carried debt so long around for yourself that you're just living in a debted life now. And you know, because you come to a church like this, that you can't actually begin to have prosperity in your life as long as you're carrying major debt in your life. Maybe you know that. And if you could push that button, that would be the one thing that you would change. It's around that debt. Maybe it's exercise and nutrition. Maybe you want to return your body to the God temple. But you've tried it before and it just hasn't worked out. And you've given up. Maybe that's your one thing. If you could push that button and you knew that you could embrace a new life of nutrition and exercise for your body, not what the magazines tell you, but for your body. Maybe that would be your one thing. And at the end of the year, you'd be able to say, I got that. I want to tell you a Bible story. Now, I know Carol very, very well, so I'm assuming that you don't get too many Bible stories here. So I hope you'll bear with me, because we're going to do a little Bible story. It's in one of the shortest books in the Bible. It's the book of Nehemiah. Nehemiah was born 440 BC, and he was a slave. He was a well-liked slave. He was a slave that was the cupbearer for the king. And he was loved by the king. A cupbearer is kind of, we call him a sommelier today. If we went into a restaurant and got a little cork around his neck and walks over and he tells you whether the pairing of that wine is going to work with a buffalo or whatever they ate during that time. I don't know. But that's what Nehemiah was. And the king just loved Nehemiah. They were actually good friends. But There was never any doubt that Nehemiah was still a slave. He didn't have freedom. Well, Nehemiah's friend went to Jerusalem, and when he came back, Nehemiah was talking to him, and he was saying, how is life there? And he said, it's worse than you could believe. You can't believe how bad this life is. The walls are torn down around Jerusalem. The marauders go in and out at will. They just steal everything and molest all the people. It's just terrible. And it hurt Nehemiah's heart. And he did this. He took it in what we do. When our heart hurts, he went into prayer. And he prayed this prayer. Great and awesome God, show me the way. Great and awesome God, show me the way. Tell me what is mine to do. And after a few moments of this prayer, it came to him that he needed to go there. But he's a slave. They don't get sabbaticals. It's not like they can get vacations. He was a slave. So he was pouring the wine that night, and the king could see how distressed his friend was. And he said, Nehemiah, what's wrong? And Nehemiah said, I need to go to the homeland of my people. Even though I know I've never been there. It is the homeland of my people, and I need to go there and see if I can help. Would you let me go for a bit? And the king, who loved Nehemiah, said, I'll do even better than that. I will give you all the wood you need to repair the place, all the materials, all the building materials you need, and you can stay for as long as you want, as long as you know you must come back. But I will also make you the mayor of Jerusalem, so I give you a little, and the governor of Persia, so I give you a little authority. And so he went. He went, and what he saw broke his heart even further. He did what you and I need to do when we have a broken heart. He did nothing for a moment. He just circled around and allowed himself to grieve. And pretty soon it came clear to him. Here's what I need to do. There could be many things I could do. There's an infrastructure that needs to be built. There are schools that need to be made. There are leaders that need to be developed. But the one thing that I'm going to do is rebuild the wall so we can stop the marauders and give people back their dignity. And so he began to talk about that. He began to go around and cast a vision. It's so important to cast a vision. And I know that a vision has been cast for this church to have a one roof home. That's not the name of it, but what's it called? One home. One home. It's casting a vision. Casting a vision in order to be able to move. Because here's what happens. When people live a long time with your one thing, you begin to normalize it. You begin to say, this is how life is. And that's what the people did. They began to say, well, this life is. This is how it is. I know I'm not being treated well in my family. I know I'm being disrespected by my teenagers or my beloved. It's not how life is. I know I live in a body I don't like, but it's how life is. It's been so long. I know I'm always scrambling for my mortgage or my rent or the kids' dental bills, but it's just how life is. A changed condition can only happen to a changed individual. It doesn't have to be how life is. And Nehemiah knew that. He understood that completely. He understood that they had no pride. They had no hope. And that's what he needed to do in the beginning. So he said, you know what? I'm going to start. I'm going to start. I'm going to cast a vision for, as it says in Proverbs, without a vision, the people will perish. And he knew that was the beginning. That's the beginning for you and I with our one thing. We have to begin to cast a vision of what would life be without this one thing in our life. And we have to be purposeful and skillful at it. You know, we've all heard this before. We have to set an intention. We have to know what we want. And we don't do it. We have to do it. We have to set that vision in our lives. Well, he did. And so he got about 100 people. From casting the vision, Nehemiah got about 100 guys to come with him and start working on the wall. And they started working on building the wall. Well, the warlords who had been going in and marauding were furious because, you know what? That was their bread. They didn't want to work. They wanted to maraud. And so when they saw it happening, first they sent spies in to see what was going on. And when they figured out what was going on, they tried to discourage the people verbally from participating. And when that didn't work, they sent in an army of marauders. And so Nehemiah had to do what you and I have to do. We have to make sure that we have all our bases covered for the one thing. And so he took half the guys off the wall to be sentries, and he stayed on working on the wall. Sometimes when we're going after that one thing that now I've been talking long enough, I know you know in your life, you have one thing in your mind. Don't raise your hands, but I know everybody has that one thing set in their mind. If I could just push the button and this would be it. Sometimes when we set out to do that, everything unlike that comes up for our attention. And we may have to give that attention for a minute with prayer. But we keep the one thing. We keep moving on that. And that's exactly what he did. Well, here's what happened. After they tried everything they could think of, the warlords, who were led by a guy named Sanballat, decided that they would try and take Nehemiah out for lunch and try and talk him out of it. And so they sent a sentry over. And the sentry had a note. Nehemiah was up on a ladder. And the sentry had a note, and he handed the note up to Nehemiah. Now, the whole point of my sermon is going to come right now. It's one little line in the smallest book in the Bible. And that's called, and that is, when they handed him up the invitation, let's come lunch, let's talk about this. I can make you rich. I can fix it so you never have to go back to the king again and be a slave. I can do all that for you. That's going to happen in our one thing, in our own life. They're going to people, come on, you can have one drink. One drink's not going to hurt you. You can have all those kind of people in your life. The one thing that Nehemiah said to the sentry who had the invitation is, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Say that with me. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. Let's do it again. I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. It is a powerful, powerful, powerful thing. When that person says, you can have one piece of cake won't hurt you, our response is, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. If your one thing is deading and you see that gorgeous dress and it looks fine on you, but your credit card is maxed out, what do you say? I am doing a great work and I cannot come down. When you set boundaries with your loved ones around how you will be talked to, and they try again, and you reset the boundary, and it doesn't feel good, you have to remember for yourself, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. You know, young people, maybe your grandchildren, maybe your children, are applying to college right now, getting ready to apply for college right now. So when those responses come back, you want to help them understand, I am doing a great work and I cannot come down if it's not the response they want. Some of us who are parents have to go into our children's bedrooms at night when they're sleeping in their suite, when they're sleeping. Put our hands on their little head. And there may be things you want to do in your life. And they're cramping your style. You got to remind yourself, I am doing a great work, and I cannot come down. See, there are no miracles in this story. It's perseverance. There will be no miracles for you. It'll feel like a miracle at the end of it, but nobody's going to do for us what God can only do through us. And it takes a minute. We have turned this whole phrase in our church into our theme for 2015. We have a big banner, I'm doing a great work, and I cannot come down. If we can begin to anchor this kind of a consciousness, we can begin to make the shifts in our life that we want. And we'll do some amazing things. Now here's the thing. It's not only amazing things about us for ourselves, but you know that even though sometimes New Thought churches are called me churches, you know, it's all about me, we know, you and I know that's not true. It's all about we. And when we can develop a consciousness of perseverance in our lives, we can change other people and planets and other conditions. I just read a story recently that I love so much, and I want to end with this story because it's a guy who I don't know how he figured it out. But he held for many, many years a resentment with his adult son. This is a story that was written up in a paper in Mexico City. For many years, he had been estranged from his son, and he ignored the boy. Now the boy was in his 30s. He had no contact with the kid. And it came to him that he needed to end this estrangement. And so he put an ad in the Mexico City newspaper. And it said, Paco, I'm sorry. Will you meet me in the square? You know, in Mexico City they have squares in the middle of the city, green parts. Will you meet me in the square so that we can talk? Well, an editor picked up this ad and thought about it, and he sent a reporter and a photographer to the square because he wanted to capture the reunion. And what happened when he got there is that there were 30 Pacos wandering around looking for a dad who would forgive them. See, when we step out in courage, when we step out willing to have a different experience in our lives, we not only shift ourselves. Because what happened is that editor and those reporters then interviewed all those Pacos, and other changes began to make for those kids. Let's take this message into prayer. Knowing that there's only one power, it's the power of love. It's the power of perseverance. It's the power of joy. Joy and harmony and love and adventure and acceptance. Abundance. All of those are simply God's street names. And so we simply allow that which is already in us to become alive. And when we do, things begin to happen. That aliveness itself attracts new experience for us. I give thanks. I give thanks for every single person in this spiritual community. I give thanks for my friend Reverend Carol for leading such a beautiful flock. I give thanks for the Great One for always saying yes. I give thanks to the Board of Trustees of this community for creating an atmosphere in which we can love and laugh and play and learn and shift and cry together. I give thanks. I release this word into the law, and together we say, and so it is. Do I take the gift now? No.
Thank you. Let's give Reverend Georgia love.